Few films cover some of the complexities of our youth and the responsibilities of growing up. One of these includes one of my favorite films, The Florida Project. This film speaks a lot about responsibility, how we cope with the problems around us, and relationships. The Florida Project is a story of a precocious 6-year-old and her ragtag group of friends whose summer break is filled with childhood wonder, possibility, and a sense of adventure while the adults around them struggle with hard times. Just a heads up, some spoilers ahead. A few things I'd like to note on the film as a whole before I get started. I love the color and the look of the film. Sean Baker did amazing with this. Everything was shot on 35mm film, except for the ending sequence. The budget, I think, is really notable. It went up from $100K from his last feature, Tangerine, up to $2 million in this one. So budget took a big step up, and I think it really speaks to the quality of sort of what Sean Baker has done here. I think this film speaks a lot to the idea of like paradise and what we expect when we think Disney World, but in reality, it kind of showcases more of the grungy, everyday life of people living outside of that area. I want to break this video into 3 main segments: the children in the film and sort of our perspective that we see through them, Hallie, the mother, and her individual relationships in the film, and also Bobby. So first I want to talk about the kids and sort of how it takes on the audience perspective. I think a really important part of this film that's hard not to talk about is sort of how the camera meets the actors like where they are. So especially with like the kids, every shot with them, you're basically meeting them at eye level, like you're kind of one of the kids. It really helps sell the idea that like you're really just here with them and they feel like real, genuine people. Because this narrative and the way that we kind of see the story is a lot of the times played out through the children's perspective, it often limits our view and what we can actually see. There are things that happen throughout the film that you kind of wonder about and you don't really realize until the child actors also realize it. It also leads us to think, what else is going on that we cannot see that the camera is not showing us? The kids have a lot of personality in this, and I think it's worth mentioning the behind the scenes documentary with Sean Baker and how he sort of directs the kids, I think is really important. It shows a lot to how the story is kind of told through this children's perspective. Mooney in the film picks up a lot of her behaviors from Hallie, her mother. Another example of how we don't always see everything is the bath scenes when we're kind of in the room with a kid and we don't really see what's going on behind the scenes. We know the mother is somehow getting money. Later on, we realize, oh, okay, she's just working when her kid is taking a bath. I think a really realistic part of this film and the kids in particular is their relationships and how so often as kids we have very little control of our situations and our friends coming and going. It's very common growing up too. People leave, people go elsewhere for reasons we don't always understand. And it's really hard. And we kind of see that throughout parts of the film where some kids just have to leave and it doesn't always explain why. So next I want to talk about Hallie, the mother, and her relationships. So Hallie deals with a lot of stuff in this film. I think in some ways Hallie can be very petty and irresponsible. I think she does care a lot for her daughter, even the other kids at some points too. I think she does show care and love for them just in her own way. We sort of see a lot of the struggles with unemployment and poverty through Hallie's character. We see, first off, like a lot of the food she gets is from the waffles she gets from her friend. The kids end up like needing to beg for ice cream money. And then also Hallie and sort of how she just goes around selling perfume on the street because she can't get a job. I do think unemployment is sort of a theme throughout Hallie's character and sort of a lot of the stuff breaking down for her slowly throughout the film. And again, you don't always fully see that big picture because you are seeing things through the kid's perspective a lot of the times. One of the final scenes with Hallie I think is really interesting is the buffet scene. It sort of really shows their mother-daughter dynamic and also sort of shows the breaking down of probably Hallie's emotional state. This is the last time they actually spend time together in the film. And maybe Hallie knew what was coming, but we didn't really know because, again, we don't know everything that happens in the film. But we see most of the scene, again, through Mooney's perspective and just how awesome she thinks this buffet is. And then we cut to Hallie and it's just like her staring off, not really feeling anything, it almost seems. And I find this scene really interesting because it's just like we don't know what she's really going through, but she's still trying to do this thing for her kid. She's not even eating, you know? It really is kind of tragic how it all plays out in its own small, little, beautiful ways. But I think Hallie tries, and I think that's important to mention as well. And lastly, I want to talk about Bobby, the manager in the film, played by Willem Dafoe. I think he does an amazing job. This is one of my favorite roles that Willem Dafoe has played. So in some ways, Bobby becomes sort of this parental figure as well throughout the film. And in some ways, he's kind of opposite of Hallie. He shows that he cares for the people around him a little bit better, and he takes care of himself a little bit more. He works hard. Not that Hallie doesn't. You can see throughout the film that this is sort of Bobby's whole livelihood. He works his butt off and cares for everybody. He gives grace when some people might not even deserve it, like paying the rent on time. I love the scene where Bobby finds the pedophile, like, just walking around trying to talk to the kids, and how Bobby handles the situation and makes sure that they're far away from the kids before he threatens the creepy guy. But it really shows his sort of love and just care for the people around him. Really, everybody in the film, from Bobby's perspective, really feels like family. Like, you can just feel that how much he cares for the people that he works for. And one of the scenes during the end, when there's this big argument, Bobby still tries to help where he can by talking to the kids, calming them down. He shows his care and his effort toward the little things despite being out of his hands. He did his best, honestly, and he still cared and loved for Hallie despite all the stuff she was doing. But yes, Bobby is S-tier character. I love him so much. He's amazing. And so overall, I think this film tackles a lot of themes. The first things that come to mind are sort of responsibility, escapism, friendship, and poverty and hardship. The responsibility with sort of being like this parental figure and navigating being a parent when you're so young as well. Escapism from more of the children's perspective and how we sort of use our imagination to almost sort of cope with all the things changing around us that we can't always fix. Friendship, again, is, I think, a really important part of Hallie's character and sort of how her friendships are sort of her life. Once that breaks down, you sort of see Hallie breaking down. And then, of course, just the poverty and hardship of the people that live there. But I think all of it ties together with the idea of family and the relationships that we build around us. It's a very quiet film. There's not really any music throughout, and you really just sort of experience life with the people. And I think that's something really beautiful that we don't get with a lot of films. That's about it for me. And yeah, go check this film out for yourself. You can stream it for free on Kanopy and Max right now. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the film and what you think of it. So let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.